What's up guys, it's Lady Calysta, and in this video I am going to go over the top 5 questions that I get on my KvK videos. So as you guys know, I do these kind of like gameplay KvK videos about once a month, and I'll talk about why I do it once a month. And I tend to get a lot of the same questions over and over again, so I wanted to do a quick video. I went back into all the comments of my videos to basically be able to answer for all of you the top questions, because there's some good ones in there and I think they might be helpful. So the very first one is relocators. So I get a ton of questions on relocators. The first question that I get is, how many relocators do you use in a KvK? Now, what I have done in the past few months is basically pre-purchase 50 relocators, location-specific relocators, and that's what I basically stick to. And it sounds like a ton, and it is. And remember, I'm really going for double-digit kill numbers, so I'm doing a lot of work on KvK. By no means should everybody need 50 relocators. I also do use the non-location specific relocators, the random ones, but those I use a little less frequently because I like to make sure that if I'm going to use a port, I'm actually going to land somewhere where I can attack somebody. How do you get relocators? Another question that I get often. Now, this is the reason why I will only do typically one KvK video a month, even though there might be multiple KvKs happening in a month, like 2, right? Like I think, I'm trying to remember what month it was. It might have been October. There were 2 KvKs in the month of October. In that case, I can't necessarily perform at the same level both times because it's just incredibly expensive, right? It takes a lot of relocators. So I always commit to myself that I'm going to go ham on one video a month, one KvK a month, so I have time to collect the relocators. Now, the relocators you can get from guild gifts. I'm not necessarily in a guild that spends a tremendous amount of money, but we do have spenders, and we do have a very, very active guild. We're constantly hitting monsters. Monsters is another way to get relocators, but quite frankly, just the amount of relocators that I use, I usually have to use gems for that. So some of you have noticed that my might has stayed pretty flat month over month, and that's because at the end of the day, when it comes to me picking between boosting my might, right now I'm sitting at 601 million, or using it in relocators for a KvK, I'm going to go for relocators in a KvK because right now what I've been focused on for the past few months is really improving my kill count. I think right now I'm sitting at 347 million kills. And I'm pretty proud of that, but I really want to get to 500 million. So it means that I need to make those trade-offs. The second question that I get is attacking versus defending in KvK. Which one do I prefer? If you watch any of my videos, will notice that 95% of the time I'm defending. And there's a really easy reason for that. I think the first reason is it feels really good to defend your kingdom against invaders. Like, who doesn't want to be the person that is like releasing prisoners for your own kingdom, right? So I tend to gravitate towards defending a lot. And I think there's another really good reason. The biggest problem with KvK, if you are a very active player, is finding castles that are unshielded and that have troops out. And if you're going to attack, it's a lot harder to do that, right? You're going to see these big hives. You're going to need to scout. You're going to need to hit a lot more than necessary to find active castles. But if you're defending and they're in your kingdom, unless they're hitting monsters or farming tiles, in which case they're usually shielded, they probably have troops. Now, it's going to be a matter of whether they're sheltering or not sheltering, and that becomes a little bit more strategic, but they're going to be people online, and it just makes the game a lot more fun when you're defending. Question 3, scouting. Calysta, why don't you scout? And I will tell you why. I scout if I am simply, let's say if I'm attacking, right? If I go into the other kingdom and I'm looking for heroes, for sure I'm going to scout, right? Because I need to make sure they have their hero out. The reason that I don't scout typically when I'm defending and I port into a 70 million might castle is because if they're online and a 600 million might castle ports next to them, they're going to shield or leave, right? And if I scout, I pretty much lost the opportunity to attack them, so I have to YOLO and just go for it, right? Because the time that it takes to scout is enough time for that player to basically shield or leave, right? Like if they're not in fury, they're just going to port away. And unless I have my march already walking towards the castle to attack, in which case that's happened a lot, and that's just a big no-no. If they're already walking on you, you're going to end up taking that hit, even if you port away. The good thing is you eliminate the ability for somebody to send the second wave, but you're going to be taking the hit, right? But again, the scout I remember when I hit, I think it was 200 million might, and I realized that I couldn't even port anywhere, and people would just port away right away, right? Because everybody's like watching online and they just don't want to take the chance. So that's really why I tend not to scout unless absolutely necessary, or if I think the player is not online. Number 4 is, how do you find your targets? There's a really easy answer to this one, and there's one that I've noticed kind of playing the game. The easy answer is world chat. So for those of you guys that are still growing your castles, or you just can't attack, or you're worried about unshielding, or you're boosting for T4, there's a million reasons why you can't attack in KvK, but you still want to help out your kingdom, post chords of invaders in world chat, right? Now, normally I'm not a big world chat posting chords type of person other than KvK. That's the only time that it kind of warrants it, right? Because you can really see how active a kingdom is by how much the world chat is trying to post the chords of invaders, and just keep that steady stream going, right? Like, everybody can help contribute to helping your kingdom win. It's not only the big players. The big players need people to help them scour the map, right? So world chat is the number one way. The second way, and this is just something that I've noticed playing KvKs for so many months, is when people come to attack a kingdom and they're in fury and they want to hide, they always go to the perimeter of the map. So what I tend to do if world chat's dead is I'll open up the map and I'll go like all the way to the corners of the map, one of the corners, and just start scrolling across. And I always find people in fury there. Always. And they have their troops out, and sometimes they go offline, right? And the reason for that is I think they're trying to hide, right? So if they're in fury and they're waiting out to go back to their kingdom, they're not going to do that next to the base, obviously. So they're going to go to parts of the map where they feel like there's not a lot of action happening, and it's always going to be on the perimeters. So that's always what I do, is I immediately go to the perimeters, and I have found hives of invaders just hanging out waiting for fury to end, and I'll check it out. I'll see if they're like doing anything or trading resources, and I'll just put right in the middle and send waves out, right? So that's another thing to do. And if you're invading and you're in fury, that's another thing not to do if that's you, right? Because people will start getting smart to that, and they'll start looking for the places on the map where people tend to go to hide. So the last one that I'm going to talk about is traps. Now, I have made it my kind of mission in the past few KvKs to really get a feel for how big of a castle I dare attack one-on-one. And the reason that that's kind of like a big deal for me, and this also helps, I think, from an understanding, and I'll go into a little bit more detail than normal, just because I've noticed that I will get comments on videos that will say things like, well, Callie, that's cool and all, but how come you don't hit a castle that's 600 million might like you? And the reason for that is pretty simple if you think about it. It would be absolute suicide. So let's assume that 600 million might castle has 20 million troops, and let's assume I have 20 million troops. My 20 million aren't going against their 20 million. It would be my 375,000 that will go against their 20 million, right? Because that's the max amount of troops you can send in one march. That is never going to go well. And honestly, there's been KvKs where massively big billion might accounts get their leaders taken by accounts that are 150 million might, 200 million might, right? 200 million might for sure. It's very easy to get your hero taken. You should never hit anything like that. But there's also traps that are kind of in that 50 million range, 60 million range. There's tons of videos out there on kind of like the traps, right? So how do you avoid traps? Well, there's a couple of things that you can do to avoid traps. Some of them are those kind of like very inconspicuous placing. Like all of a sudden they're going to put themselves right in the middle of somebody's hive where they know people are active, or they're going to have pretty low might. Let's say if you see a castle that has 50 million might and 60 million kills, that's not a normal progression of an account, right? They're building a trap. So take a look at the kills, take a look at successful defenses, and it's going to start giving you an idea whether or not that's a trap. Now, depending on your gear and on your jewels and your heroes, the outcome of hitting a trap will vary. Some people get their heroes taken right away by a trap, and some people end up just losing troops, right? And I think the whole purpose of making a trap is that they're going to sit there in KvK waiting to get hit, right? So oftentimes you'll see and this is like people that I guess that are like super new at this, they'll post their own chords and world champ, be like, come hit me. So don't hit them, right? Like there's certain things, like if they have that low might, high kills, if they're putting themselves right in the middle, completely unshielded, right? But they have anti-scout on, and they're sitting in the like 50 to 60, 70 million might range. They're probably going to be a trap. You could do kind of like a double, triple team, right? And have 3 people go at the same time to try to fill their hospitals. It's going to be really expensive to heal, but you're probably going to not do that great, right? Like it's not really worth it. But those are kind of like the few telltale signs of what a trap looks like. Now, I have hit accounts upwards of 230 million during the last KvK in order to stop a guild who was pretty big from double rallying. One of my guildmates, I kind of poured it in the middle, no fear, and started attacking the people filling in the rally, right? And there were accounts there that were like 230 million. I think there was one that was 210 million. I ended up burning them, but I ended up losing might like crazy, right? Those are like the victories that don't feel like victories, because then I'm looking at my hospital and I'm like, oh good God, I'm gonna need to heal that, right? So but again, it's more for me kind of pushing my account to see what it can do, and kind of how far I can go as I do each of these KvKs, and also trying to put on a good show for you guys, right? So you guys can see something different than the types of things that I've showed you in the past. I hope this was interesting for you guys. Keep the questions coming. I'm always looking for new content and really trying to create material that you guys feel is helpful and will help you deepen your understanding of the game. And as usual, thank you so much for watching.